What's up, everybody? My name is Andrew, and welcome back to Water Cooler Quarterback, where we act like we know things about football. Now, before we get started today, I've actually got something pretty cool and a little fitting for the channel. It's a water cooler. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about a division that's kind of all over the place. There's teams winning playoff games in miraculous fashion, and there's teams basically breaking down and starting from scratch. That would be the AFC South. Now, the AFC South is kind of the odd man out in this conference, kind of the odd little brother that people forget to talk about. In 2022, the AFC South had 3 losing records. Both the Colts and Titans ended the season on 7-game losing streaks, and the Texans even screwed themselves out of the first overall draft pick. If the AFC were a pack of Starbursts, the South would be the yellow one. If the AFC were a spice cabinet, the South would be flour. And if the AFC were a bunch of cookies, well, the South would be oatmeal raisin. I quite like oatmeal raisin, but that's not the point. The AFC South certainly has some work to do if they are to be as interesting as the other divisions within the conference. But heading into 2023, I think there's a lot of exciting stuff to look out for. Let's start off with the Tennessee Titans. The Titans are a team that find themselves with one foot in the past and one foot in the future. You see, in 2019, the Tennessee Titans made it to the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs, and they did this as a wildcard team. The next year, in 2020 and in 2021, they won the South outright, securing playoff berths both of those years as well. Unfortunately, in both the 2020 and 2021 seasons, they were first-round exits in the playoffs. And in 2022, after a 7-game slide to end the season, they missed the playoffs altogether. With every year seeing less and less success, it seems like Tennessee is just desperately trying to keep their playoff window open. The 4 years I've talked about, from 2019 through the 2022 season, has seen Ryan Tannehill at the quarterback position and Derrick Henry in the backfield. Tannehill is a good quarterback, and Derrick Henry one of the best running backs to ever do it. But with both of them continuing to age, the question becomes, are they able to continue to will this team to some wins? Because prior to last year, the Titans traded away their youngest, brightest star in A.J. Brown to the Eagles, and as a result, had the 30th ranked passing offense in the league. Meanwhile, A.J. Brown was tied for second among receivers in receiving touchdowns, was 4th in receiving yards, and made it to the Super Bowl. So, whoops. So, okay, the passing offense wasn't great, but you still have Derrick Henry, right? Clearly they were top 5 in rushing. Well, no, they were 13th, which isn't bad, but with the passing attack being what it was, 13th is not going to cut it on the ground. This offense simply was not good in 2022. And with a 35-year-old quarterback and now a 29-year-old running back, what have the Titans done to fix their aging offense? Well, they brought in DeAndre Hopkins, a 31-year-old wide receiver? I joke, but Hopkins is no spring chicken himself. And though he was still productive in his time in Arizona, I feel like this is kind of a final Hail Mary for this Titans team. Lucky for them, DeAndre Hopkins catches Hail Mary, so maybe this works out. But while the Titans are desperately clinging to their playoff hopes with aging talent, it's clear that they're getting ready for the future when these guys aren't around anymore. The entire 2023 draft was spent on the offensive side of the ball. After rookie Malik Willis didn't seem to work out so well last year, the Titans decided to use their second-round pick on Kentucky quarterback Will Levis. Now, despite his odd eating habits, it seems that Tennessee has found something they like in the kid. Wide receiver Treylon Burks is looking to improve off of last season, and with a new running back in Tyjae Spears, it's entirely possible that the next generation of Titans is already on this team. Ultimately, we're just going to have to see if the old guard has one last run in them. And to touch on the defense real quick, they could not have been more polar opposite. They were the number 1 ranked rushing defense. You did not run on these guys, but they were also the 32nd ranked passing defense. They couldn't stop the pass to save their lives. They do still have 2-time All-Pro Kevin Byard, and they also brought in Sean Murphy-Bunting out of Tampa Bay, so hopefully they can get that passing defense a little more under control this year. Now we move on to the Texans. Oh, the Texans. Another one of those teams that just can never catch a break. Despite going up 21-0 in the first quarter against the Kansas City Chiefs in the 2019 playoffs, they somehow found a way to lose that game. And from there, things have just never quite been the same. DeAndre Hopkins got traded to Arizona. Deshaun Watson sat out for a year and then was traded to Cleveland. And with the first overall pick in their hands last year, they won in Week 18 to give that up. Nevertheless, this is a team that has been rehauled from top to bottom, and I think has some reason for some real optimism going into 2023. After it was clear that Lovie Smith was not the long-term answer in Houston, the search for a new head coach began. And it didn't take long for defensive coordinator out of San Francisco, DeMeco Ryans, to land the job. Ryans was once a Pro Bowl linebacker for the Houston Texans, so he's already got some ties to the team. And after helping the 49ers run the number 1 overall defense just last year, it's clear that fixing this 27th overall defense is priority number 1. Coach Ryans brings with him a special kind of pedigree. You don't become one of the hottest head coaching hires in the NFL just by chance, and his effect on the defense will not go unnoticed in this new season. The Texans have got some good pieces on defense, one of them being Derek Stingley. Now, he may get overshadowed by Sauce Gardner's big personality up in New York, but he was a really solid rookie corner last year. And of course, there were other additions to the defense, changes here and there, but who are we kidding? The Texans got Will Anderson in the draft. Anderson was highly regarded heading into draft night, easily considered the best defensive player available. And in a move that shocked the NFL, after just picking a quarterback at pick 2, Houston moved back up to pick 3 to grab Will Anderson and make sure that they got this elite talent on the defensive line. Yes, in one draft, Houston picked 2nd and 3rd overall. That's unheard of. But these are the types of moves that are going to change a franchise, and I wish more teams would do this. If this doesn't work out, then oh well, Houston wasn't doing well anyway. But if this does pay off, it could set you up for a decade of success. DeMeco Ryans is going to love having Will Anderson on that defensive line. And if he's even half of what people think he could be, all of Houston's going to love having him there too. But as I said, the Houston Texans picked 2nd and 3rd overall. And if Will Anderson was 3rd, who was their top priority? Well, that would be the quarterback that they hope is their guy of the future, CJ Stroud, out of Ohio State. I personally was super excited to see him go 2nd overall. Every year there's this kind of weird thing that happens. A quarterback is a lock to go 2nd overall. Everyone's sure of it, and no football has been played between their last game and the draft. But for some reason, a narrative shifts, and people start saying things, and test scores come out, and maybe that's not the right choice. And some other quarterback inexplicably starts going ahead of him in all the mocks. I wonder why that could be. Regardless, I'm happy that didn't happen this year and that CJ Stroud went at 2nd overall like he deserved. And now, in his rookie year, he finds himself on an offense that could be better than people expect. Wide receivers Robert Woods and Nico Collins, I think, will be great options for a young quarterback. Tight end Dalton Schultz was very effective in Dallas last year. He's now in Houston. And a great running back in Dameon Pierce is going into his 2nd year. So I think CJ Stroud is set up for success. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the Colts for a little bit. Last year's Colts seemed destined for success because back in 2021, they had a great offensive line. They had the league's leading rusher in Jonathan Taylor. They had some great receiving options and a top 10 defense. It seemed like they were just a quarterback away because they had to be dealing with Carson Wentz all season. So when they went ahead and got Matt Ryan from the Falcons, I mean, it was a lock. They were surely going to win the South. And then the season started. This team fell apart. The 31st ranked offense, 23rd in both rushing and passing. Jonathan Taylor was injured for much of the season, playing in only 11 games. He rushed for almost 1,000 yards less than he did the season prior. Matt Ryan had a QBR of 42.9 out of 100, throwing 13 interceptions to only 14 touchdowns. The offensive line took a significant step back, and the defense fell to a pitiful 30th in the league. So needless to say, the Colts were one of the most disappointing teams of the 2022 season. Thankfully, being bad is rewarded in the NFL in the form of draft picks. The Colts were picking 4th overall and spent months stressing about whether or not another team was going to jump in front of them to take the quarterback that they wanted. Nevertheless, they remained calm, or as calm as you can be on draft night, and they stuck at pick 4 to take Anthony Richardson, a quarterback out of Florida. Now, Anthony Richardson is an athletic marvel. It's been said that he has the size of Cam Newton and that he runs like Lamar Jackson. A Russian quarterback with maybe a little development to do, but one that has an insanely high ceiling. Now, before we get ahead of ourselves and get all excited about the Indianapolis Colts, we do need to discuss the elephant in the room, that being Jonathan Taylor. At the time of recording this, Taylor has requested a trade, and after some interesting tweets from both him and owner Jim Irsay, it seems like this relationship may be broken beyond repair. Taylor, as I mentioned, was the league's leading rusher just a couple years back, and he is the latest victim in the running back market being absolute garbage right now. If this matter doesn't get resolved, the Colts are going to be in a really, really bad spot. Backup running back Zach Moss has broken his arm and is going to be out for a while. And with a rookie quarterback, you could really use a star running back to make sure that not all the pressure is on your QB. Being able to hand the ball off to Taylor would be so nice for Anthony Richardson. If this team is not good, which it probably won't be without Jonathan Taylor, I worry for Richardson's development. It could take longer than it needs to, a la Justin Fields up in Chicago. And in all honesty, I just want to see Anthony Richardson be awesome at football as quickly as possible. Now, I mentioned that the defense really struggled last year, and a lot of that has to do with Shaquille Leonard being out for much of the year. He only played 3 games, and if he is going to be healthy this year, I think that defense should improve. He's a multi-time All-Pro, Pro Bowler. He's a great linebacker, and I think that between him and still having guys like DeForest Buckner, I think the defense could improve. I don't know if it's going to be great, but it could improve. So overall, I do have hope for this Colts team, but if a few things don't come together, it's going to be a rough season. Now we come to last year's AFC South champs, the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jags are a team that, much like the Bengals, found their quarterback in the draft and have quickly turned the franchise around. That quarterback, of course, is Trevor Lawrence. Drafted first overall in the 2021 draft, it's entirely possible that by the end of this season, he's the most tenured quarterback in the division. Lawrence is going into what I consider to be his second year. I mean, technically it's his 3rd year, but it's hard to count the Urban Meyer season as a true opportunity for anybody on this team. Last year, the Jags obviously made a head coaching change and brought in Super Bowl champ Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson was a breath of fresh air, and I cannot express enough how big a change he was for this team. Whether it's on the field, in the locker room, or just not being a distraction off the field, Peterson was a massive improvement at the head coaching spot. With a functioning head coach, Trevor Lawrence and this team flourished. Lawrence established himself as a bona fide starter in this league. In 2022, we saw what we expected out of him coming out of college. He was more poised, made better decisions, and his stats skyrocketed. His completion percentage went up from 59.6 to 66.3. His yards up from 3461 to 4113. Touchdowns up from 12 to 25. He over doubled his touchdown production. And his interceptions down from 17 to 8. Lawrence is here to stay, and it's a shame that his first season had to go the way that it did. He's now surrounded by a great offense with no shortage of weapons. The O-line in 2022 allowed the 5th lowest sacks, and though they did lose a guy in Jawan Taylor, I think should still be sufficient. Travis Etienne broke 1,000 yards out of the backfield last year, and though his touchdown numbers weren't insane, I do still think he is a really good running back and is very effective in this offense. And even if he's not, they bring in rookie running back Tank Bigsby to carry some of that load. Tank Bigsby? That is the coolest name for a running back ever. Tank Bigsby. Oh my God. Tank Bigsby. Tank Bigsby? His name is Tank Bigsby. That is awesome. What a perfect name for a running back. If Tank Bigsby is not an all-pro at some point in his career, I'm going to be disappointed. Tank Bigsby. Receiving threats Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, and Evan Ingram were more than enough to be an effective receiving core last year. But on top of all those guys, the Jags are bringing in Calvin Ridley. Yes, they traded for him back when he was still suspended for sports betting, and it was unclear whether or not he would ever play in the NFL again. But clearly, gambling on Calvin Ridley has paid off because they bring in a new wide receiver 1 for Trevor Lawrence. And though their defense could be a little bit better at stopping the run, they were altogether really solid. They've got guys like Trayvon Walker, Devin Lloyd, and Josh Allen. No, not that Josh Allen, this Josh Allen. Those guys should keep the defense strong. And with the offense being as good as it should be, it's probably okay if the defense isn't top 5, top 3. All right, so conclusion time. Who's winning? Who's losing? How is this division shaking out? In 4th place, I'm going to have to put the Indianapolis Colts. It's never fun putting a team in 4th place. I'm sad to say that the Colts are going to bring up the bottom of the division. I do think they'll be better than last year. New additions and returning guys will be nice and keep the season more on track, but I just don't think that they are ready to compete in the NFL yet. I think we will see some flashes out of Anthony Richardson, enough for us to be excited going forward. But the team, not in 2023. In 3rd, perhaps a bit surprisingly, I'm putting the Tennessee Titans. A Mike Vrabel coach team I don't think will ever truly be bad. But they've got a lot of really inexperienced guys and a lot of guys with maybe too much experience. All in all, every year they have seen less and less success. And I worry about what they're going to be able to put on the field this year. Now, with putting the Titans in 3rd, I think you can probably guess how the rest of the division is going to shake out. Yes, I do think the South is the Jaguars' division to lose. So I'm going to be putting them at 1st and the Texans in 2nd. The Jaguars have a great quarterback, a great offense, and a defense that can do more than enough to keep them competitive against just about any team in the NFL. So book them for a home playoff game. But don't let the fact that I think the Jags are going to win the division overshadow the fact that I think the Texans are going to come in 2nd. I am putting them above the Titans, which may seem a little far-fetched, but this is an all-new team through and through. Huge new pieces on both offense and defense. Great young returning talent on both offense and defense. And it's all being coached by DeMeco Ryans. I've got some faith in this team. So call me crazy, but go ahead and mark my words. Texans coming in 2nd in 2023. And now to finish things off, some storylines to watch in the AFC South. You all know I like to provide these narratives or players to watch so that if a random game is on a Sunday or Thursday night and one of these teams is playing, you've got something to look out for. So starting off with Tennessee, I think they are a more interesting team than they're given credit for. I do think that they've got some interesting pieces. And if partway through the season it's clear that this is a lost year for them, I'd love to see Will Levis or Malik Willis get in there at quarterback. I want to see the young guys start to take over and see what the future of the Titans is. Down in Houston, I want to focus on the 2 guys that the Texans sold out for in this year's draft. CJ Stroud and Will Anderson have got a lot of pressure on them, being the 2nd and 3rd overall, and given what the Texans had to do to go get them. I am excited to see if these guys can perform. Boy, for the Colts, there's a lot to keep an eye out for this season. Obviously, I'm eager to see how Anthony Richardson performs in the NFL. We also got to keep an eye out on whether or not Jonathan Taylor's even going to play this year. But I think, even more than those, I want to see what that defense is able to do. It's clear that their decline had a lot to do with Shaq Leonard not being there. A 3-time Pro Bowler and a 3-time All-Pro disappearing from your team is not going to help. So if he comes back and is healthy this season, I think their defense will find their footing again. And last but certainly not least, for the Jacksonville Jaguars, I am super excited to see what Calvin Ridley can do for that offense. The Jags are currently kind of the little brother to the Chiefs, the Bengals, and the Bills. But if Calvin Ridley comes in and produces the way I think he can, I don't see why they can't be one of the best offenses in the AFC or in the NFL as a whole. And heck, if this really works out, maybe T-Law even starts creeping into that MVP conversation. Well, thank you all so much for watching this episode of Water Cooler Quarterback. We continue to inch closer and closer to the end of this series and closer to the start of football. If you like this content, if you want to see more of it, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and be sure to hit the bell so you know when these videos come out. Until next video, my name is Andrew, and I will see y'all later. Bye-bye.